Hi guys, we're going to be doing our presentation on Jeffrey Dahmer. In our group, we have Bren, Merrick, Shadi, myself, Esmeralda, and Manar. And so some basic facts on Jeffrey Dahmer. He was a serial killer and sex offender who murdered 17 boys and men. His victims were poor people of color, ranging from African Americans, Asians, and Latinos. He was known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster. And his motive for killing was simply to have the person under his complete control and because he never wanted them to leave. So beginning with his early childhood, he was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on May 21st, 1960. His family consisted of his parents, Lionel and Joyce, as well as his brother David. He was described to be energetic and happy until the age of 4 when he had to have corrective surgery for a double hernia. And he became more withdrawn following the birth of his younger brother, as well as his family constantly moving homes.
Okay, so Jeffrey attended Hazel Harvey Elementary in Ohio in 1966. At this point in elementary school, he started killing and collecting animals. Specifically, he would kill animals and then dissolve them in acid. And then also his father taught him how, his father would take him to go digging for animal bones and stuff. And Dahmer recalls really enjoying the sounds of the rattling bones once he would dig them up from the yard. So very creepy and interesting. So he also during elementary school was very uptight and anxious and experienced emotional withdrawal between the ages of 10 to 15. Also during this time, he had very little friends and his mother and father were not really present in his life. So his father was a doctor, so obviously very busy, focused a lot on work, so wasn't really present in his home. And then his mother had severe depression and attempted suicide at one point during his life. So she was also kind of not attached mentally to be a good mother for Dahmer. So and then at the age of 13, he recalls having thoughts of murder and necrophilia that started occurring. So when Dahmer reached high school, he went to Currier High School in Ohio as well. This was in a different location though. His parents and his childhood was filled with a lot of moving, even though they did stay in Ohio for majority of their lives. So Backdorf was a classmate in Dahmer's high school. This was made into a huge movie and documentary, Backdorf's story and his experiences with Dahmer. So Backdorf recalls that everyone thought Dahmer was very the weird kid and very just very interesting and quiet, but so odd. But no one stepped up to talk about Dahmer's presence in the classroom. Everyone just accepted it and thought that maybe someone would intervene later in life or his parents would find him help. So he also recounts that Dahmer pretended to have epileptic seizures and cerebral palsy in the classroom, which is very insane, very weird and obviously out of the ordinary to fake having something like that. Also in high school, although he was seen as the weird kid, his classmates also thought he was really funny. So they coined the term doing a Dahmer when something some really absurd, gross joke was made or prank. And then actually at the age of 16, Dahmer created a plan to kill a jogger that jogged around his neighborhood every morning. And so he actually planted a baseball bat near the corner that he planned to kill her at. But on the day he showed up, she actually never showed up. So after that, he didn't act on that. And then his adult years were very sporadic. So after he graduated high school, he went to Ohio State University in 1978. He dropped out after one term. I think it was one quarter term, so very, very short amount of time. At this time also, his mother and father got a divorce, which affected him greatly. Still, his father pushed him to do something. So his father pushed him to join the army. So in 1978, after dropping out of college, he joined the army. He was stationed very quickly in Germany. He was a very, very heavy drinker throughout high school and still in his adult years. So in 1981, because of his drinking problem, he was discharged from the army. So then after he was discharged, he moved to Wisconsin to live with his grandmother in 1981. So shortly after, he lived with his grandmother for 6 years, and this was where a majority of the killings took place. He was also arrested 3 separate times during his adult years for nothing related to like any murder, any violence or anything. It's basically just indecent exposure. So in 1982, he was arrested for indecent exposure. In 1986, arrested for indecent exposure again. And then in 1987, he was arrested for fondling a 13-year-old boy. And I think this was like right in the heat of all his killings as well. So I thought it was really interesting because I found a lot of information about how his father really supported him and loved him, but couldn't really like wrap his head around why Dahmer was, obviously he knew he was getting arrested for indecent exposure, et cetera, et cetera. But he still like did try to provide like support and a better life for Dahmer.
So Jeffrey was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and psychotic disorder. Borderline personality disorder is a mental health disorder that impacts the way you think and feel about yourself and others, causing problems functioning in everyday life. And schizotypal personality disorder is a mental disorder characterized by severe social anxiety, thought disorder, paranoid ideation, derealization, psychosis, and often unconventional beliefs. Lastly, Dahmer was diagnosed with psychotic disorders. They are severe mental disorders that cause abnormal thinking and perceptions. Dahmer's motives were not to kill his victims, but to turn them into living zombies by drilling their brains and filling it with acid or boiling water. His true motives were to be in full control of his victims as he thought of them as zombies. And he stated, I just want to have the person under my complete control, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted. Dahmer was driven by primordial and sexual craving to keep his unfortunate subjects captive, satisfying his erotic pleasures whenever he wanted. So Jeffrey Dahmer was a hedonistic killer. Hedonistic killer looks for thrills and derives from the pleasure of killing, seeing people as expendable for his killing goals. He was also a necrophiliac, which involves sexual pleasure with dead bodies. Jeffrey was also a cannibal. He would keep dismembered body parts in the refrigerator to eat later on.
So he murdered 17 male, and he found like many ways of murder them. His first murder was after graduation, and the killing occurred with the two victims in 1988 and one in 1989, and four in 1990. His way was to get a person, make a relationship with them, then after as as a way of sex violence, or like a way that he can enjoy it, he kill them, rape them, drag them, and strain them. The Dahmer began killing around one person each week by summer 1991. So his victims start to be like more every like year, because he liked the way of turning, as Shadi said, he liked the way of enjoying turning the victims as zombies. Next slide. So as I said, his first murder occurred just after graduation in 1978. His first victim was Steven. He took him to his parents' house. Then they got drunk. Then they had some sexual relationship. Then he struggled down with Barbell. In 1988, Dahmer took his second victim, his name is also Steven, then tracked into and took him into a hotel room. And also they were drunk. Dahmer doesn't even remember anything about that night. And his two other victims were like in his grandmother's house. Dahmer victims continue increase. He bring the total from 4 to 17. He developed a skill to a way of like he want to kill. He take some acids, he put it in the body as they are alive, and see them as they want to like die, but at the same time he doesn't want to kill them because that's how he enjoy them. And at the same time, one article he said like all the 17 of them, whatever he killed, he actually loved them. That's why he did everything with the victims out of love. And basically all the male that he did a relationship with them and dragged them out of like love relationship.
Okay, and then some internal factors that helped Dahmer, that could have been a reason for his actions, was that he was suffering from multiple personality disorders and mental disorders, as stated before. That played a huge role in it. He had trouble fitting in due to his personality disorder and had difficulty with emotions towards other people. So that really made him an outcast. He had a severe drinking problem that started at a young age, and he usually drank to cope with life, to block out the noise in his head, and to mostly try to have emotion towards other people. A lot of the times during his murders and his killing sprees, he was drunk, and he was drink before, and most likely be drunk during it, which caused more of that. Dahmer also had a very high IQ level, which means he was very, very smart, so it got him out of a lot of different situations. Like how he was arrested multiple times before this, and he got out of it without being caught or anything with his murders. With that.
And then external factors that may have led to or played a part in his actions. So like I said before, he moved around Ohio a bunch during his childhood. Even though they stayed in Ohio for majority of the part, he still attended a bunch of schools. And this led to like a lot of instability in his home life and just like not having like a home base and a place to fall back on. Obviously his mother and father's relationship at home, I feel, was like one of the biggest components of external factors. So they got divorced when he was 18, right after he graduated high school. And he also had a poor relationship, like I explained before, with both of his parents growing up. So that definitely played a huge part. Additionally, I found that school was an external factor. He never had friends or any support system of teachers that I found that supported him and like wanted to help him. I also found that he was bullied frequently, and he never felt like he had like any friends, any support. And so I believe this to be an external factor that may have driven him to kill 17 people. Further, alcoholism, obviously Merrick just talked about it too. I feel like it could it doubles as an internal factor and an external factor. Internal because, alcoholism is a sickness, but external just because, alcohol influenced his actions and decisions externally. And, obviously it's something external that's entering his body. So I just saw it as an external factor.
Then Jeffrey Dahmer's initial trial began on January 30th, 1992 in Milwaukee before Judge Lawrence Graham. Dahmer was first arrested after his last victim escaped on July 1991. After that, Dahmer pled not guilty to 15 murders. He pled insanity, and 2 weeks later, the courts found him sane and guilty. He was then sentenced to 15 life terms, which could be around 950 years for all 15 first-degree murders on February 1992. Dahmer was then sentenced an additional life murder for his first murder that he committed in Ohio in 1978 for a total of 16 life sentences.
So a little bit about Dahmer's prison life. When he arrived at Columbia Correctional Facility, he was kept in protective custody so that no other inmate could become famous for killing him. And during this time, he spent quite a bit of time in religious study and was actually baptized in prison. An attempt was made on his life in July of 1994, but it only scratched him. However, later that year in November, he was on bathroom cleaning duty with two others, Christopher Scarver and Jesse Anderson. They were left alone for 20 minutes, and guards came back and found Anderson and Dahmer bludgeoned to death. Scarver, which is pictured on the right side of the slide, mentioned how some people who are in prison are repentant, but he, alluding to Dahmer, was not one of them. He felt as though the guards had left them alone because they knew his deep-seated hatred for Dahmer. And here are some of our resources for our slides, and that's it.